thanks for everybody for tuning in, and we appreciate your support. And we have a special guest right here. Go ahead and just tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
What's up, guys? How you doing out there? It's comic book artist, writer, and director Graig from BeyondComics.tv. I make these guys over here.
That is awesome. So what got you into all of this? How did this occur?
Wow, that's a great question. I mean, I think I was drawing superheroes since I was about 2 years old, and it was a great feeling, especially when I finally got hired officially by Todd McFarlane from Image Comics. He was the one who gave me my first paid job in comics. And in fact, Todd McFarlane and I spoke about that at New York Toy Fair on a video. So if you guys want to see that video, it's on my YouTube channel and my Instagram channel. And I was like, Todd, let's talk about it. It was great just to reconnect. And he was so cool and friendly and nice. And it was a wonderful feeling and a great experience,
Yeah. So what are the projects that you have that you're working on currently?
Well, yeah, the new one that I'm doing, actually, we just got it out here, and this is the new masked edition called Gekido, Gekido, which is co-created by writer Brandon Wilson and me, the artist Graig.
Awesome. So what's the premise behind this comic?
That's a good question. It's kind of an interesting, it's almost like a modern day samurai type story meets James Bond and Wolverine kind of all rolled into one. And it's exciting to be a part of it and stuff like that. And the character here, this is the masked edition. And we were very lucky to get signed by Marvel and DC Comics distributors Diamond, who put it out as well. This is the Gekido masked edition. So inside, I'll try to see if I could quickly revert the camera and show you guys just a little preview inside what it looks like.
Oh,
so
nice.
There we go. You can see kind of some of the work that I did here. And then this character. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it was a real labor of love, and we got. It was exciting because I was very excited to get Cary Tagawa from Mortal Kombat. He plays Shang Tsung, and also he starred in The Man in the High Castle, and we cast him officially as Lord Shinryu, which was such a treat, to get him on board. And also Coco, Ice-T's wife from Law and Order, she plays a character named Cleo. So I cast like these celebrities in the comic book, just like you would a movie. And we also got Baba Booey himself from Howard Stern show as a ninja, and Adrienne Curry from America's Next Top Model as Tricity. And by the way, we got the action figures of Coco as Cleo and Tricity, which is over here.
Oh, that is sweet. So you got the action figures for these.
Yeah, it was really exciting. We got a licensing deal from TB League Fison, who did Billy Tucci's She figure and the Bloodshot figure from the new movie that's coming out. So we were really, really blessed to be able to get this, and they did our figures as well. And I designed everything from scratch, which was great that they let me do that. And it has this seamless synthetic skin body on it with 28 points of articulation and a titanium steel skeleton built inside.
Oh, wow.
So it's super posable.
No doubt. So everybody who is joining from our account, we over at Cosplay Zine, we really appreciate you checking this out and watching our live, and for all your support. So you've been working, you've been going to comic conventions yourself, correct?
I've been going to comic conventions since I was a baby. In fact, when I was 6 years old, my dad brought me to one of the very, very early Comic Cons, and I saw Dave Prowse there, who was the guy who played Darth Vader in the original Star Wars trilogy. And he was telling everybody how upset he was when they took off the mask and they didn't show his real face. So I remember, at 6 years old, I told him, when I grow up, I'd like to draw comic books one day, and I'd like to cast him as a supervillain. And he's like, that's nice, kid. And he passed me on the head. Fast forward a few decades later. And then I saw him at a convention in New York at the Big Apple Comic Con, and he was signing all these autographs and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, it's Dave Prowse. I haven't seen him since I was 6 years old. And I run up to him and he's like, no, get online, no autographs, blah, blah, blah. He's just signing already online for the autograph. And I'm like, Jesus, I can't get his attention. And the line was huge, and it was great because it was like right around the time that, like the whole rebirth of the excitement of Star Wars was coming back and everything again. So I grabbed my artwork and I just flung it on his table, and it landed. He's like, what is this? I was like, I'm a comic book artist. I said, we met a long time ago. I'll put you on that later. I want to draw you as a supervillain. So he looks at me, he looks at the artwork, he says, would I be the lead supervillain? I was like, heck yes, you will be the lead supervillain.
That's awesome.
And, yeah, and sure enough, he was really cool. And, we worked it out, and he is the supervillain Sunder. He plays that character for this upcoming comic book with Ray Vidactyl, which was kind of how the whole ball got, started, so to speak. And it's been forever, working on this stuff, because as an independent artist, oh man, it's really hard to just get everything going, and you have to save up just so you can cover printing costs, and it's wild. So I'm glad that at least little by little you get it done,
Yeah. And that just goes to show everybody listening, there's a lesson in that. If you have a dream, chase it, and then, don't give up on it, and everything can come around full circle and just work out for you. You miss all the chances that you don't take.
That's really true. And it's, I can't even begin to tell you, how many times as an artist you hit so many roadblocks and you feel like giving up. And I think that if you have a strong idea and you bust your behind to try to learn everything there is to learn about screenplay writing, script writing, what works, what doesn't, how to improve your artwork, and you just keep going and going and going, eventually, if you don't stop, you may actually hit something. You may get a little success. And with that comes a lot of haters and jealousy and people who make stuff up on the internet, and you have to deal with all that, and you have to kind of navigate those waters, Like I remember, like, even guys I went to school with, who were like very angry that I made it and they didn't, and just making stuff up. I know, like, one guy was like, oh, he never met Todd McFarlane. He didn't get paid or hired to draw for that, pinup he did in Spawn. That was fan art. And I was like, are you serious? Yeah. Like, really? You know what I mean? And that's one of the reasons why I think it was great to make the video with Todd McFarlane, who acknowledged the fact that he actually paid me for the double-page spread artwork, and to have to kind of, put a stop to some of the negativity, because people will try to rip you down, just like the old Cinderella movie, where the sisters are angry that she made her own dress, and she's trying to, that's very true to life, unfortunately. People can get angry, and I always come from the school of let's help each other together. Let's team up together. Let's try to, help each other, because that's what the whole point of life is to me. You know what I mean? So it always makes me sad when I see people who get angry that someone else is happy or someone else is in a relationship and they're not. And they get, my God, I've been single so many times that my stuff hadn't worked out and somebody else did. And I was sincerely happy that at least they're happy. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's a different mentality. I think that a lot of people, I just wish they'd band together to help each other. That's kind of the whole thing,
Yeah. And there's a lot of, I would say, idolization when it comes to the industry of all different types of industries, where they idolize these people for creating something, and they become such fans of it that they want to reach out, they want to talk to everybody. But if it happens to be someone that who got successful, then it's a different story, the level of support that you give them just because you know them. But they're just like anybody else trying to struggle out there until they make it. You get told no a lot, and then you finally get your yes. and then you become successful at something, you know?
It's true. And like, you know, and I feel really bad for the little kids who are getting bullied and getting that online community of bullying, because I remember as a little boy, I was like really badly bullied, you know. There was like much bigger kids than me. And when I was a little kid, I must have been like 9 or 10 years old. Like they held a switchblade to my neck. And I remember feeling like, oh my God, this guy's going to kill me. And, you know, when I grow up, I hope I could create superheroes to stop bullies. You know what I mean? That was a thought in my head. You know, but they didn't have back then the enormous community of people who could just destroy somebody with hatred, you know, and they team up, they gang up online against some of these kids. That's so sad, you know? It's very tragic.
There's a lot of bullying in the cosplay industry as well.
Really? Tell me about that.
I mean, they don't believe, they think that they own the fandom just because they're a fan of it. So if they see someone who doesn't look exactly like the actor, or exactly like the comic or the cartoon or whatever they're trying to portray, then they, you know, they'll bash them, you know, racism, or just say that they're a different version of that character, that, you know, in a derogatory way.
That's
and yeah, posting comments and stuff like that, and it really, I mean, it can make cosplayers want to just quit and be very discouraging what they do, because they work hard and they partner up with photographers who need money, you know, to work too in the industry, and they work really hard on this stuff, and then they put it out and they get all these negative comments.
I think it was most, when I was a little boy, I remember it starting with Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl. Remember? And they were calling her Fat Girl and body shaming her, which was insane. She looked fine, and even if she didn't, they shouldn't have said that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think that was like that kind of snowball effect that began. And it's very disturbing. You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy that stuff happens. And and it's sad, because I always feel like it's important for us to kind of, as human beings, help each other and point out some of the positivity, you know, versus the negativity. So a lot of times, you know, people will be like, oh, you know, this sucks, or that's terrible. And, you know, you have to kind of weed through what's somebody being mean versus actually good advice or somebody noticing them. So like my first comic book, you know, the first book I did way back in the day, which was like an older version of this character, you know, like I didn't know what I was doing. I was a young, naive kid in school. I'm trying to put out my book, self-publish, and let me see what happens. I mean well, I'm trying to do good, but I just wasn't educated about politics, society, the world. I just thought there's good guys, there's bad guys. That's the end of it. I didn't understand what I understand today, you know, and especially with like corruption, that there's actually real, honest to God corruption within our own country. What? You know, there's actual terrorists who wear business suits. It's insane, you know?
Yeah, and I know Stan Lee, you know, rest in peace. I know he
he was great.
Made a lot of his comics according to a lot that was actually going on in the world at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
And, you can look back and see that how it was reflecting on his mind and stuff, to combat not only the bullying, but on the higher scale of actually what was going on politically and the wars that were going on at the time. So there's a lot of history in comics.
A lot, you know.
That's a reference.
Exactly. And Stan Lee, like, I mean, I met him a few different times, and he was such a nice, kind guy. And he, no matter what happened, no matter what he was going through, he was always positive and trying to put a positive spin on things. Even after his heart surgery and after his wife passed, he was still, hey, heroes, how you doing? You know, he was still that positive, you know, father figure of comics that we all looked up to. And I don't know if I had mentioned this to you, but one of the wonderful things that happened is I got to meet Steve Ditko here in New York City, the co-creator of Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, for you guys out there who be too young to know about it or whatever. But he was a real recluse, but he had an office right here in New York City in Midtown. And I'd always, you know, walk by and I was like, Jesus, should I go up? You know what I mean? I was so scared, you know? And one day, you know, which was, gosh, I mean, it was probably about a year to a year and a half before he passed. I decided just to go in, you know, and there was security, and they're like, "What are you doing? Are you with the press?
Yeah.
Who are you? What do you want?" And I was like, "No, no, I'm just the comic book artist. I just want to thank him." And then the security guy looks at me. He's like, "Hey, listen." He's like, "We get 4 people a week trying to come in here to see him, and he hasn't seen anybody for 4 years except his nephew." I was like,
Wow.
"Really?" He's like, 4 years. He's like, and man, he's like, I would not go up there if I was you because it's a peculiar person who's a recluse. That's what the security guy said. And I was like, it's okay. Let's try anyway. You know what I mean? So he picks up the phone, and sure enough, he calls. He's like, "I can't believe it. Mr. Ditko said go up." I was like, "Are you serious?" And like a nervous wreck, I go upstairs, and there he is. And I swear it looked as if he had walked out of a magazine from 1940. It was incredible. Like his whole outfit was pristine, just like you'd imagine somebody in the 1940s. And he had one of those little, bicycle delivery boy caps called? You know what I'm talking about? You know, he had one of those kind of like hats, you know, and like a bean kind of hat thing or whatever, you know. And it was amazing. He was so nice, and you know, and he spoke to me for like about 30 minutes, which was incredible. And he's telling me so much stuff, and a lot of it was really heartbreaking too. Like, especially he was talking about how he felt that there was a time where suddenly they ushered out all the old classic artists like him, and like kind of replacing them with the newer, young, hot artists of the time. And you know, and he had a very particular way of doing things, you know, which I know was definitely not easy, but you know, he always stuck. He kind of like, you know, stood his ground, so to speak. You know, stuck to his guns. And he shared a lot of information. And I asked, I said, "How did you create Spider-Man?" He said, "With my hand." I was like, that is the dopest answer I've ever heard.
Yeah.
That's like a pimp answer, you know? He's like, "With my hand," you know?
Yeah.
It was really cool. And I asked him, you know, is he still getting along?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just like, you know, is he still getting along with Stan Lee? Was he able to work through that? And he's like, "We're okay now." And I was like, you know, I just want you to know how much, you know, us people love you and wish you would come to a Comic-Con or sign. And he says, that was a different life. He says, it doesn't mean anything to me anymore, is what he said. And I said, well, it means something to all of us. You know what I mean? So he really kind of just seemed to be very nonchalant about it. You know, he's like, look, some things stick, some things don't. You know, it was interesting because it's impacted my entire life. Spider-Man, that character, that design, and everything that's behind it, you know, and I really think it was like a collaborative effort. You know, you have Steve Ditko, you have Stan Lee, and then Jack Kirby, who did the cover. So it's interesting just to see like that team that makes, those are the parents of Spider-Man, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I have a question. What was your, actually, a couple questions, actually. What was your first comic, and, you know, what comics kind of inspired you to start doing your own?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess when I was a little baby, I was just absolutely head over heels for Superman. I was like, that's the coolest dude. When I grow up, I want to be a superhero too, you know, just seeing that. And I remember my mom and dad got me the old Superman, I think it was the Cooper costumes, you know, and I was like my 3rd birthday. And I remember opening the box and seeing a Superman costume and putting it on. And I'm like, wow, can I fly now? Like, this is amazing. And I just walked out feeling like a superhero. You can imagine a little 2-foot tall version of me. I looked like Baby Yoda wearing a Superman costume at the time, you know.
And for me, you know, there was a lot of just Batman influence for me as I was growing up, and I liked Batman so much. And then I started looking through albums and flipping through and seeing pictures of me in like Spider-Man pajamas and watching Spider-Man, and I'm like, I watched Spider-Man back then too, you know, because you don't know sometimes when you're a little kid what all you do and what all you got into. But that's cool that you actually remember that.
Watch the old the cartoon, like the replays the cartoon, or what were you looking at? Which Spider-Man?
I have no idea because well, let's see, I'm 36, so can you track that back to when I was maybe 6 years or
wow,
maybe 5 or 6 years old?
they had replayed so many of the old classics though on repeats, you know? Like I remember one of the things that, you know, confused me when I would see some of the cartoons replaying as a baby, I had no idea that these were old things from the past. You know, I'd watch Scooby-Doo. I had no idea Scooby-Doo was created like decades before I even arrived in planet Earth. You know what I'm saying? Because they look brand new to me. I'm like, that's a new cartoon. But I mean, I've seen like all the Spider-Man stuff, even from like the Nicholas Hammond live action '70s, you know, Spider-Man was such a great show back in the day, you know, as a little baby seeing that as the first live action. That was the only live action Spider-Man we had, and Electric Company. That's the only times you ever see a live action Spider-Man. Everything else was animated, so it was thrilling. But as a baby, like I went, you know, again, like 2, 3 years old, Superman, the Max Fleischer cartoons from the 1940s that they'd replay on TV. You know, I just was enthralled by that. Then I discovered Batman, of course, because they had the Superman Batman crossovers in the comics, which I had no idea that that was old. Like my dad was reading that stuff, and I saw it for the first time, thinking it's new. And then of course I fell in love with Batman and Spider-Man always, you know. So it was like interesting, and I remember they had the Mego action figures. So I had like all those toys and those figures, and my dad would always bring me a little Mego, you know, action figure when he came home from work. And that was like my most exciting memory, to wait for my little toy, you know, to add to the collection. And then I would make custom figures, you know, because if they didn't make a figure, I would try to make one. So I made like a custom Zorro figure out of a Robin figure, and I'd hand stitch them, and I'd make my own costumes. And it always bugged me when I had the that Cooper Spider-Man costume, because it had like some kind of like yellow built into it, and it didn't have like the red webbing on the sides of the arms, you know? So I cut out red material and would stitch it as a little baby onto the costume to start what would now be called cosplaying, you know, and customize. Which was great until I eventually got to these guys. So some of my artists and I and people that I've connected with, we sculpted this stuff, Mark and I, and it was really exciting just to be able to like come together and, you know, make this stuff and everything and these kind of characters, you know. So it was really a thrill just to be able to bring it to life and have an idea in your head, and then bang, you could wear it and play with it and, you know, actually hold it in your hands. You know, it's a great feeling.
Yeah. For those who just joining us, thanks for coming on. And Ozzy Joker, shout out to you. Afternoon, mate. Tell us where you're from down in the comment section. And I have another question for you. For well, if you could take your comics and kind of give like sort of a mission statement, or
Sure.
Say, well, what do you want the impact to be? What do you think that the people will what would you like them to take away from after, you know, reading one of your comics?
That's a great question. My hope is to add something, a new element to the world of superheroes and comic books out there. So what I've tried to do is invent things that I haven't seen done yet. So my characters have very unique, original, new powers that I've tried to reincorporate. So, for example, a common power would be if someone is strong, or they run fast, or they fly. So I'm trying to do stuff that I haven't seen before. My character might fly as well, but there's a lot of science built into that. And I'm trying to make it as realistic as possible, so it's not just only using comic book science, but real science blended with that. And then also a lot of unique powers, and every costume and each character looks the way they do because there's a hidden map in every costume. There's an actual story behind why they look that way. It's not random. It's not just, you know, some random designs. It's very, very well kind of planned out, researched, thought out. And there's like secrets that people will say, oh, that's a red character. And that's all you're going to spot until you go deeper and you recognize how it really intertwines with the story. So my hope is, especially with the stories, like I studied screenplay writing, and, you know, I thought I knew how to write until I studied it, you know, and that's when I was like, wow, I have an idea. I do not know what I'm doing. I thought I did until I actually read real honest to God screenplays, you know, and also like studying Christopher Nolan's technique for writing Batman Begins and, you know, in The Dark Knight. That stuff was really high end and really good quality. So it kind of forced me to have to get better. So like I'm writing 9 different scripts for 9 different characters right now. And I finished a bunch of them and I'm refining it. And Sid Field, who was I believe he taught James Cameron screenplay writing. That's where I learned that stuff from. And also Ian Holt and some other people that I had studied with that just changed my life. It's like there's an actual structure to putting your ideas to hit staccato points so that you don't lose your audience, which is very difficult. So we finished the script for Codename Justice and for Raven-Dactyl, but Raven-Dactyl I have to edit. It's just too long. It's like 240 pages, you know, so
wow.
it's a huge story.
I mean, they look awesome.
What did you say?
I said they look awesome.
Well,
so,
thank you. Thanks, man.
Sorry about it. And for those just joining us, thanks for all your support. And Iron Man _ Midlands, shout out to the UK, and thanks for tuning in and watching this.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. And by the way, this is just to show you guys who are just tuning in. This is the Gekido comic book that's out now, and you can get that at beyondcomics.tv right there. And that's actually the actors wearing the suits that you see behind me. You can see that.
So it's fair to say that there's opportunities for actors or even cosplayers to have an opportunity to be a model or representative of the characters.
Absolutely. I mean, if any cosplayers wants to dress up as any of our characters, let me know and send me pictures, and I'll do my best to try to get it into the next comic book.
And for those who are following us or, just learning about Cosplay Zine, our magazine, we feature cosplayers and cosplay photography from all over the world. And we'd love to have some of your submissions. And we're starting a new cosplay social network for everybody who is dealing with the algorithm out there, because we know a lot of people who are very talented are not getting the likes, shares, and exposure that they deserve for all of their hard work and dedication. So look for that to come soon.
Absolutely. And by the way, I just wanted to backtrack for a second. This is Dave Prowse, who played Darth Vader in Star Wars as the supervillain Sunder in the upcoming Raven-Dactyl comic. So that's him showing his face, as I promised when I was 6.
So, where do we go from here? I know, some of the people out there who's watching are having, a lot of issues right now with the COVID-19. We hope everybody is safe and getting everything that they need, and just being respectful and good to each other out there with that. But I do believe that we are going to go beyond that. We're going to be okay. Everybody's going to be fine. And I know that you had a message similar to that on your page as well, on your account.
Yes, definitely. I mean, absolutely. It really upsets me that I think so many people, young people, are panicking and they're living in fear. And my business partner, Cary Tagawa, who plays Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat and, the Man in the High Castle, he has this great saying, which is, it's never to fear death. It should be the death of fear. And I love that saying that he says, because, as long as we're careful and, we don't go into mass transit or crowded places where we're stuck breathing the same air and someone could be sick there, or we, wash, there's nothing to panic about. Just, we all do our part. Let's, protect each other. Let's look out for each other. And let's not panic about it. Let's just go forward and keep going and relax a little bit with it. And please, everybody out there who's worried, remember, 99+ percent of the population is fine. They do not have corona. It's fine. 99% of the people are 100% fine. No problem. So please remember that the news is reporting less than 0.001% of the people who do have it in the world. So just to put that, into perspective, in New York, if there's let's say, for example, 8 million people, and let's say 1% gets it, that's like 80,000 people. But then you have, 7 point, something million people who are fine. It's like people have to just put it into perspective so they don't panic. And like I said in the video, I was shocked that we're out of toilet paper. Dwayne Reed, CVS, Walgreens, no toilet paper. And there's elderly people who are crying, desperate for toilet paper and, paper towels, little children. So, you see a lot of people, 20s, 30s, 40s who are panicking because they've never dealt with this or heard it before. They think it's the end of the world, and they're just collecting, so much toilet paper. And like I said in my video, how many asses do we have? We have one, just one.
And it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there because, my little cousin, she's only 1 year old, and they was trying to get her some milk, because babies need milk, and it was out. So it goes from the toilet paper to the milk, and now you're online asking for other people if they have any milk. And, it goes from that to that. And here's the thing, fear. Like I was saying, it was interesting what you were saying because, that kind of related to what I've been saying all day. Fear is the enemy.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be afraid because, even superheroes are afraid when they do their, when they're saving the world, they're still afraid at some point, the bad guy or the enemy that they're facing, the villain, is a little bit stronger than them sometimes. So they got to be more creative and fear in the instance, to not succeed. And that's kind of what makes it exciting, the fear, because if the superhero wasn't afraid, then they could just conquer the enemy and there would be no show. But it's okay to be afraid, and it's okay to be vulnerable, but if you're afraid and vulnerable, and you take more than you need, you're making someone else afraid and vulnerable too.
That's right. Exactly. And by the way, a quick update, which I wanted to tell you is I went into one store. It's similar to like a kind of grocery store combined with Bed Bath Beyond type of store, right? And they have a limit that each person cannot buy more than 3 toilet papers in 24 hours, period.
Yeah. They also, Walmart, I don't know what other stores are doing to combat this, but that's something I also encourage, if you have a store or something, regulate this because it's important.
Great.
It's actually not a 24-hour store. They're stopping to make them 24-hour stores. They're actually closing early.
Yes.
Now. So put that in perspective. If you could go in anytime and grab whatever you need, and now because you're taking more than you need, and they're having to limit the hours and limit what you get. So everybody's rushing around, and you're not going to get what you need because you're fearing, struggling you're not. It's going to be okay. I mean, I got one thing of water.
Okay.
Usually I drink a lot of it, but I don't have to drink a lot of it. There's actually water in the faucet. So keep that.
What? You can't touch that.
Hey, once you put it in the filter for a little bit, once you put the water from the faucet into the filter, filtrated, it's not that bad. But right now we have water that we don't have to drink every single second. That's what one problem with America is. We've got to the point where we eat when we're not hungry, and we drink when we're not thirsty.
Yeah.
And then we think that we need more than we need. So
it's definitely a concern. And I think that it's great that they put some kind of a limit to ensure that everybody gets the toilet paper, for example. But the thing that concerns me, for example, I was like, what if somebody has a grandparent that can't leave the house and they need to buy toilet paper for themselves, their kids, their wife, their family, and their grandparents? They can't. They will not sell it to them. And I asked them, I said, hey, listen, I said, what if, somebody has grandparents and, 7 family members or something? They said, no, they don't care. 3 toilet papers, period. That's a little scary because, you know that there's going to be people who are just one person who are going to stack up on more than 3 if they can do it. You know what I mean? That's where you're cutting in to actual elderly people who I saw, you know, looking everywhere for it. And my friends called me and sent me videos of people fighting, like physically fighting for toilet paper in stores. That's just sad. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and like,
I've seen those videos too. And
yeah,
one thing you could do, you know, if you want to help out, and I know people have money, people out there, you know, that's you're still able to work. For most of you are still able to work. I know there's some situations where you have kids at home, and it's hard to get anybody to watch them because the schools are shut down, and you know it's hard to get a babysitter and stuff like that. So you're struggling there. But a lot of people can still work. So if you have the extra money, buy 2 for yourself, buy another one for someone else.
That's a good idea.
Kind of spread the love around and make sure that everybody's got one. That way, when somebody goes in there that you love and they limit them, then there you go.
See, that's a great idea. I love that you said that. And I just wish that people would kind of relax and not panic. I'm shocked at how many people are truly terrified. Like I saw this couple at the health food store I was at. They're probably about maybe 28, 29 years old. And they had like literally like respirator masks on, like for real, like the real kind with the breathing things. And, you know, I was looking at them. I was like, listen, guys, I'm like, you're young. I'm like, leave those masks for elderly people who might actually seriously need them, or wear them, you know, if you're in a subway or, you know, someplace where you can't, you know, get clean air because everybody's recirculating the same air that you're breathing or something like that. I understand. But we're here in a health food store, and it's good ventilation. It's open. Nobody's sick. In the last 3 weeks, I've not seen one sick person in New York, not one. And honestly, it's a ghost town, so it's the safest time to go outside, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the thing of it is, if you have something covering your mouth, it's not going to protect you from getting it, because all you have to do is breathe on your face, and that's it. The mask only protects you if you have something, because then you're not coughing on other people.
Right. I mean, at least it's a little better, but yeah.
Yeah. What bothers me is when you look at the news, it says, well, they've been saying for a long time, just wash your hands and don't touch your face, which is almost impossible. You know, you've touched your face a couple times, and I do it. I do it with my shirt, but
right.
So because I'm so used to it, I never opened doors before any of this started. I just open stuff with my shirt when I go to anywhere like doors or whatever. I open it with my shirt. It's just I've had pneumonia before, and I just didn't want to get that again. You know.
Yeah, it's terrible. I had that too. It was awful, terrible, long time ago.
Yeah, but what bothers me in the news is that they've only said those 2 things, and it's rinse and repeat. And then on the maybe 5th day, they finally said, "Clean your cell phone." And I'm like. That was like step 1, because here's how it goes. If you touch something, a surface or a door, then 9 times out of 10 you're going to touch your cell phone before you wash your hands. And then what you're going to do with the cell phone, you're going to stick the cell phone right to your face.
You got it.
So that's right.
That's right.
So there just need to educate more instead of just telling the deaf toll and how
exactly. Totally true. And I'm glad that you pointed that out, because a lot of people, I think, are being hit with this for the first time. Now, when I was little, I was born with just a kind of compromised immune system when I was a baby, right? Which has been, you know, it's become much better as I become an adult, and then it finally healed, right? But as a little child, I remember being careful. So for me, I was used to being cautious and wiping things down, and, you know, taking your vitamin C before you go out, which lasts 4 hours before you pee it out, and then you have to repeat. You know, that's kind of something that I just got accustomed to. So, you know, people used to make fun of me for being the weird guy who wears a dust mask when I'm in a crowded train when it's flu season. And now everyone's doing it, and I'm the one who's like, calm down, everybody, it's going to be fine. Like, the tables have turned. It's unbelievable, you know? Like, my friends are calling me in a panic, And I'm like, guys, it's okay. And they're like, you're the calm one, Greg, you know? I mean,
Yeah. And I was in a similar situation because when I was born, I had colic.
oh,
So I was
wow.
just coughing nonstop. And at one time, they put me in one of those little bubble things, like not bubbles, but like a ventilation system, something they called it a bubble, but I was sitting in there, and the nurses actually forgot about me. So I
Are you
was turning
serious?
for a
That's
second,
terrible.
and my mom was like, "Hey, get him out of there," you know? And
Wow. How old are
yeah,
you?
just like firstborn, so it was like
Wow.
3 or 4 months or something, you know.
Mm.
I'm not exactly sure, but yeah. So
That's
a whole lot of
scary.
sinus issues, anxiety issues, and stuff like that. But you know, I'm here now doing doing good stuff, and a lot of
Great.
can contribute to a lot of support and just a passion for things. Passion can, when you follow your dreams, you get through the boundaries of whatever you have that's affecting you.
Exactly.
But
Actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because I think a lot of artists and writers and creative people deal with a lot of suffering and anxiety and a lot of depression, you know? And I know that that's something that has been a very hard thing to fight through, because I know, like, for myself as an artist, I'm very empathic and I kind of feel other people, so to speak. So it's very easy for me to absorb, you know, someone who's negative or not being positive, or someone who is, you know, bringing you down, or if you have worries about health issues with your family members, if they're sick or older. And that causes realistic depression, like very realistic anxiety and depression. And one of the things that I have found to be really helpful, if anybody's out there who's also dealing with depression from time to time, is check your breathing, first of all, because a lot of people have minor sleep apnea and don't know it, which causes a little bit of oxygen deprivation to the brain, which causes you to actually be in somewhat of a kind of sleepwalking state, even when you're awake, you know, and it's like a sleep deprivation is what it is.
yeah.
So you just feel lethargic, tired, depressed. You can't think right. Everything seems worse than it is. You don't feel you can handle it. And a lot of that's because you're not breathing. You're suffocating slightly. And that's all it takes to kind of really trigger that really badly. And a lot of people are on medication and all these things not realizing it's a breathing issue, you know? And that's something that I think people should kind of look into and maybe get a sleep test or a take-home sleep test and see, because it's not something that people are aware of. But it does affect you, and it can create those problems. Make sure you don't have a deviated septum, and you can breathe properly through your nose and through your lungs, and that you do that. And also meditation, actually doing, you know, like transcendental meditation. A lot of celebrities do that. And just, you know, look like in this sense, if there's very successful people doing that, you know, maybe there's something to it, right? Maybe there's actually something that clears your mind. So, it might help.
Yeah. Yeah, let me ask you this then, pertaining to that. If you know, there's people out there, I'm sure, you know, watching right now, and they have a lot of barriers in their life, a lot of struggles and things that they're dealing with, anxiety, or you know, a number of things, depression, whatever it could be, you know. But they also have a passion like yours. They're drawing, and they're wanting to, you know, create comic books and stuff, but they're at the kind of bare bones basis, square one of all of this, and you know, just looking for a little bit of inspiration, or you know, what kind of direction to go into to kind of do in your footsteps a little bit, what you're trying to do. What advice do you have?
That's actually a great question. I'll try to share something that impacted me, that kind of was a crossroads in my life, and I think that people can learn from it greatly. And that was when I left high school. I was like the only artist. So I was like, wow, I'm an artist. I can draw, yippee, I can create stuff. And you kind of leave with this kind of confidence, you know? And then you go to art school, and your confidence is disintegrated instantly, because all 10,000 people can draw probably better than us. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I remember I went to School of Visual Arts and NYIT. And when I was at School of Visual Arts, oh my God, I walked in, and a friend of mine at the time let me sit in on his second year class, which was taught by Walt Simonson, the great comic book artist. And I walked in there and everybody was better than me. Everybody. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I am so behind. They are doing stuff that I just didn't even know, you should do. And I remember I went home. I was 17 years old. I went home and I was so depressed, like for real, And I was like, I am nowhere near this level. How am I going to possibly even have a chance? And I said, I have a decision to make, and that is stay depressed and stay home, or let me spend every free second that I have trying to improve and learn. And I bought every art book from the great masters and Michelangelo and all the Ninja Turtles, Leonardo, you know what I mean? Donatello, right? I'm kidding, but
I love the Ninja Turtles.
Right, Leonardo da Vinci and all this stuff. Just all of these art books. And I redrew every single page of those books, thousands of pages, over and over and over. Started understanding how the body works, how the anatomy works, how to do visual storytelling. That was hugely important. Klaus Janson eventually became a teacher of mine at School of Visual Arts, who was the inker on The Dark Knight with Frank Miller. And he was a very, very, very fine, and he is a very fine teacher as well. In the art of visual storytelling, and he kicked my ass hard. Like, he's like, no, he's giving me horrible grades, no. And the last day, it clicked, and I got it, and I did it, bang, nailed it. He was like, there you go. He shakes my hand, and that was a great feeling to kind of be pushed by these guys. Also, Joe Orlando, who was an amazing teacher, God rest his soul. He was awesome, and he would explode on me. Like, his temper was fierce. People would back up in the classroom. No, Mike, you can do better. This is terrible. What are you doing? He would really come at me. And then finally, I finished the homework and I gave it to him, and then he says, Mike, he shakes my hand. That same kind of, you did it. You got it. You got to this next level. But the truth is that I had to kick my own ass and study and learn things and visual storytelling and storyboarding and human anatomy and foreshortening and figure drawing and gesture posing and the kind of psychology of the reader and why they like things and don't like things. And ultimately, and I hope this advice helps, it's not so much about being the best writer or the best artist, it's about being the best editor, so that you know what's bad and you take it out, and then you know how to fix it and make it better. That's very, very important. So if you could turn yourself into your best critic and your best editor, and like I was saying earlier, when you have haters or people that, that are saying things, take a moment and listen. Are they making sense? Is there something that maybe we missed that they saw, or are they just being mean? And maybe it's both. You know what I mean? But you have to weed through it. And if there's even one kernel of good advice, grab it and then learn from it and make yourself better. Don't stop. There are books, and now there's like so many YouTube videos on how to draw and how to write and do things. There's no excuse not to study because everything is free online. You can see it. So, that's what I kind of want to tell everybody, is that if they have a passion, no matter how bad their circumstances are, don't stop, because if you accomplish doing 1 page a week, okay, then guess what? In 22 weeks, you're going to have a finished comic book, So you can actually do it. And it's okay if it sucks, and it's okay if you fail, because that's how you learn. I had to do things wrong in order to know what was wrong, so that I could now start to do all the things that I hope people will take as right, as long as I keep trying to improve. So, I'm like I kind of believe that all of us as human beings are like works in progress, like our art, and we're trying to learn more and educate ourselves more and kind of understand how things really work and what's really going on out there. So if there's any chance, no matter how depressed you are, upset you are, if you have passion, never say you can't do it. You can do it, but there's certain steps you have to take and potentially suffer through in order to get to that point. If you're willing to do it, you will succeed. You will have a chance to do it. But it takes a tremendous amount of dedication and work, and you have to kind of, team up with good people. It's hard if somebody has the passion and they don't push themselves to fix it or learn or or connect or team up with somebody who is somebody that could draw the book for them or write the book with them or things like that. It's important to team up when you can, you know what I mean? And be open to criticism, you know, like there's like one guy, you know, I won't say who he is, but amazing writer. He's a very good writer, but he sent me this script and it took probably about 40 minutes before we hit the action scene, and it's an action-based script. So I said to him, I was like, hey, this is a great script. I said, why don't we just take this scene here and pop it maybe like in the opening? And he flipped out, like he went crazy, you know? I mean, cursing me out, you son of a bee, what do you know, F you, blah, blah, blah. I was like, bro, calm down. I've just made a little suggestion. You don't have to do it. You know what I mean? But like some people are very sensitive. Like you got to be careful. And the problem with that is that when somebody flips out like that, if anybody sees that, people will be frightened to work with them, you know? So I know for me, you know, I have enough stress as it is. I don't want to have to deal with somebody who's like, you know, fighting every 5 seconds or mistakes something because we made a very nice, you know, suggestion to just move a scene. That's all I said, you know, and he flipped out. So it's like, you got to be careful who you're working with, you know, and you want to make sure that it's people who support and try to build you up. There's a lot of people who will yank you down, and that's another negative thing to kind of avoid, you know. And again, with the internet, people will see something and run with it without checking it. So, you know, they'll see somebody say something, and it's like, well, wait, did you check that person's credentials who said that thing? Is it verified? You know, it's very scary right now. We live in this crazy time where you know anybody can make a blog or a website and just pop stuff up and say whatever they want. It's dangerous because you don't know who's doing what, you know. We live in this very sensitive time where people can lose work and investments and, you know, and actual jobs over things if they breathe the wrong way. It's like scary, you know, so you have to have balance.
Yeah. So tell us, you know, I know that right now we can't kind of get out and go to the Comic Cons and stuff like that. Have you you been affected in that area where you're living too? I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, here in New York, they have canceled everything, and as of midnight tonight, apparently they're shutting down all the bars, restaurants, gyms, everything. And we don't know how long it'll be. It could be indefinitely until they announce otherwise, and that's scary because I think that's too extreme. I think restaurants are optional, you know, bars are optional, gyms are optional. Nobody has to, like, I understand if a celebrity comes to town, like if Jerry Seinfeld's going to perform some kind of comedic, you know, stand up, and everybody doesn't care how sick they are, they're going to try to go see him. That's dangerous because now people who are sick don't want to miss that event, and they already paid money for it. So yes, postpone those events because people will come.
Even comedians. Even I was thinking about that the other day. Some great comedians are their jobs are being affected just like everybody else. Some people don't think of a comedian as having a job, you know, but it is a job and it does take hard work, and it's kind of like being sort of an artist at the same time because they go through some of the same things as being either told no or booed off the stage or anything like that, or you know, people get booed and still are famous today after, you know, and successful today.
That's right.
But yeah, with all that going on, you know, we're kind of online and we're wanting to connect with everybody and talk to everybody, but right now we can only do this. So tell everybody where they can find you online.
Absolutely. Well, guys, if you get a chance, please go to beyondcomics.tv. Not .com, that's the store. Beyondcomics.tv. And you can check out my comic book there that I had mentioned before, which is, here, I'll hold it up just for you guys over here. Here we go. Gekido, issue number 1, masked edition, which you can see at the website, as well as the action figures over here, beyondcomics.tv. Actually, Cleo sold out worldwide, which is a dream come true. And I got like a couple of cases left here of Tricity because she's the newer one that came out. So we could get that again at beyondcomics.tv. And I'm just very, very excited about it. And also, by the way, I wanted to tell everybody, especially the cosplayers, if any of you cosplayers out there want to dress up as any of our characters, please contact me at beyondcomics.tv. Send me an email. send me the picture of you dressed up as our characters, and we could potentially feature you in one of our next comic books, which would be great. And it'll be fun too. And even if you're not a cosplayer, we have a contest type of thing where people can enter just by following us on social media, and they automatically get put into this drawing. And if their name is selected, they might see their name appear in a comic book somewhere, maybe, you know, graffitied on the wall, or they might appear as a character and their likeness drawn in the comic as well. So that's you could be in our comic, is what it's called. You may be in our comic on the website if you check the tabs at beyondcomics.tv. So if anybody wants to be a comic book character, check it out here.
Somebody, I believe that it's a joke in the comment section. Somebody said, Mr. Popping says, can we use toilet paper as payment with a little laughing face? But I'm sure there's a currency that you need to be supported.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm only taking paper towel right now.
Oh, really? But yeah, but it's available now for everyone to order.
Yes, the comic book is available now at beyondcomics.tv and the action figure of Tricity.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, well, thanks for being on here, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure. This has been like so much fun. So I just love that you bring the community together with Cosplay Zine. It's a great name. It's a cool place, and I love seeing all the posts as well.
Yeah, awesome. And everybody who wants to check it out, you know, and if you follow us, or you know you want to follow us, we're at Cosplay Zine. It's Cosplay ZINE on Instagram and Facebook as well. We're most coming on.
Oh, absolutely.
Instagram, that's where we most post from. Follow us, and we'll be featuring Graig's work soon. So just follow us, and we'll make sure that you can get some more information on that too as well. So
that'd be great. Thank you, guys. And by the way, I know somebody had asked me. So if they want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Graig WEICH, which is GRAIGWEICH.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, man. It was such a pleasure to talk with you. As they say in comics, to be continued.